So let's go back a minute. Your parents divorced, and then your father got sole custody, and then you and your brother moved to Manhattan to live with him.
Mm-hmm.
Did he raise you alone, or did another woman come into the picture?
No, we did not live with him alone, and it wasn't another woman that he ended up sharing a very happy life with. It was another man.
Who was the other man?
He was a very beautiful, red-brown, 6'3", black singer, performer, Chip.
How did your father meet him?
They met, my father was in auditions. It was actually the end of a very long day of auditions for Bubbling Brown Sugar. They were replacing one of the leads. And at the end of the day, everyone's like ready to pack up, and then in walks this last performer to audition, Chip. And he's already pretty incredible to just look at, you know. And then, of course, when he opened his mouth, it just stopped everybody short. He had a flavor like Billy Eckstine or Johnny Hartman, that kind of
so this was like
baritone,
the silky
baritone, yeah. You don't even hear that.
Yeah, that's
now,
what everybody sings high these days.
Yeah.
This was that rich, beautiful.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, was this the first time that your father was involved with another man?
No, it wasn't. You know, and I think that people might have trouble with this because we're so conditioned to sort of put people in categories. And I really believe, although maybe it's just, you know, a daughter trying to keep her father in some kind of box myself, I don't know. But my father was really a lover. And I say that because he didn't feel like he needed to sort of quantify or justify who he ended up falling in love with. And it may have been a man, and it may have been a woman, and it may have very well been a gorgeous plant. I mean, that was just who he was. So, you know, people even ask, was your father gay? I mean, okay, you could say he was gay. He was closer to being, you know, straddling both, but I think that he was so open to love and being a real romantic that he also loved being in love.
For you, you're a child now.
Mm-hmm.
And
11, 12.
The 70s. And how old were you, did you say?
11, 12, around that time. I was 11 when we came to live with him.
We're in the 70s. You're being raised, and your mother, you know, is divorced, and she's in some ways abandoned you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you go to Manhattan to live with your father, and it's not another woman, it's another man. How do you, as an 11-year-old, deal with that, not only for yourself, but the perceptions of the people as you walk out of your apartment?
Yeah, I dealt with both those things. I mean, to be really honest with you, Chip and I, we had a time making it work. But I think what's more important to say is that when we first came to live with them, I was really still reeling, and probably for most of my life, and maybe to some extent, you know, even now, reeling from what had happened in terms of my mother having left. And not only to live with our father, which I was very happy to do. I was always daddy's girl. But that she then, you know, gave that up, but then kept that distance. You know, that re-entry into our lives only happened so occasionally. So, so that really, I think, was, even when Chip and I had problems getting along, and me trying to understand what this relationship was, because I didn't fully. Because at 11, maybe today, you know, kids might, because it's very different. But at that time, I didn't really know what that was. I knew it was his friend. I knew that were creating a life together, that they loved us tremendously, it wasn't perfect, but nothing is. And, and that's what it was.
Well,
So
I think the difficulty people find in a regular divorce, man-woman, is that acceptance of the new person that comes in. Man or woman, it's like there's always friction with that.
Right.
And the tendency for the child to say, you aren't my mother, or you aren't my father.
And that existed, absolutely.
So did it
And I was
you,
the other, the little female in the house, and I was a trip, I will tell you.
So did it take you a long time to accept who he was?
It did, but what I want to say though is that really at the baseline really existed my anger, my confusion, my struggle with dealing with my mother's absence more than anything. That even in those times where Chip and I had that friction, I think that what I really was dealing with was the absence of my biological mother.
Yeah, but did you also have that absence of the birthday parties?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I mean, the things that people would suggest that a mother could give a child.
No, I mean, if anything, we had that and then some. We were a theatrical family. My father believed in celebration, as did Chip. I mean, Chip was a fabulous cook. He would make me a strawberry shortcake from scratch every birthday with just, mounds of whipped cream. Now, whether or not I was in the best disposition to fully embrace and accept and enjoy, I did it with a kind of reluctance because there was that thing, between us. But
so for you, there was no lack of, I come home and mom's got dinner on the table.
Oh,
that was there.
Chip had dinner on the table. I mean,
and
when
going shopping for clothes and going.
And the shopping for clothes. I mean, first of all, you have to know that Chip is someone who you kind of loved, you kind of hated him. I mean, if you didn't love him, you'd hate him because everything he touched, he could do. If he decided that, well, I'll take clothes, for instance, he decided that he wanted to try to make something for me in another effort to kind of just win me over. He got patterns, bought a sewing machine, and would sew me make clothes for me.
Were they good or were they just
They were wonderful. He ended up creating robes and ended up selling them to Charivari and Bloomingdale's. And I mean, it's just a sidebar. He was a performer, an entertainer, but he did that, and he cooked, and he,
So it seems like there's no lack.
There was no lack.
In what
There
you
was
had
no lack.
growing up. But in regard to your father and Chip's relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's this thought that sometimes in a gay relationship, honestly, it doesn't last that long. It's just a fly-by-night thing. And were you feeling that? Was it just a
Not at
little
all.
thing? Or?
Not at all. Chip was 10 years my father's senior. Does that make sense? 10 years junior. 10 years junior.
10 years younger. Chip was 10 years younger
10
than your
years
father.
younger than my father. Walked into the middle of this very angry and heated divorce, and these two young children, and never once, never gave up on me, never walked away, never. So you say what you want about what family should be, and we just don't know what it ends up being. I think.
How long were they actually together?
18 years, longer, in fact, than my parents were together.
Or actually, I meant to ask you, are they still together?
Well, that depends what you believe. They are and they aren't. They were together until both their deaths in '94, 6 months apart.
And how did they die?
They died of AIDS.